Hello, everybody. I am really excited today because I have a guest, and this is a guest who is going to give us some unique insight into the semi, especially as it applies to Europe. All right. So Johnny he's a guy that works specifically in the electric truck world in Europe and is also looking for an opportunity to maybe start doing what he does in the United States. So if you know some way that Johnny can connect and become involved in doing some of this consulting work in the United States, that would be a great benefit to him. And I'll provide his information below so that you can get in contact with him. So Johnny, what is it exactly? Because, the reason we're having you on today is because you are an expert with regard to electric trucks for years now. How long have you been doing this, and what is it exactly that you do?
I'm Johnny Nijenhuis. To keep it very simple, I help transportation companies making the switch to electric trucks. I do this as a consultant. I'm a one-man show, so I'm a one-man company at the moment. I started the company like 2 years ago, but before that, I worked at a truck dealership, and I was also the specialist on electric trucking at that moment at that job. So I'm actually doing this for like 4 or 5 years now. So yeah, and 2 years as an entrepreneur. So yeah.
All right. So what exactly, we know, as Tesla fanboys, we think we know why any trucker out there should prefer the electric truck to a diesel. But what would you say in the 5 years you've been doing this, what would you say has been the motivating factor to get people in the door and start talking to you about switching to electric?
Now, for transportation companies, it's quite simple. It's costs. In transportation, in logistics, we have very low profits. So we have very slim margins, like 1.5% is okay. It's fine. It's a good margin for in logistics. In that manner, we are really cost driven. We look at every penny. We want to make the smartest decisions to make the lowest cost as possible. And electric trucks have the potential to be the lowest cost for road transport in the future. And yeah, every time a transportation company really gets that the lowest costs are going to be electric trucks, then they are interested in electric trucking. So yeah, it's quite simple. It's total cost of ownership, and yeah, if you have the lowest cost, then you're the winner.
All right. So now, there's this other side, and Europe usually is a little ahead of the United States on this, which is the virtue, what we call virtue signaling. People saying, "Hey, we're green, and we're going to reduce the carbon footprint, and we're going to not produce as much particulate matter." Et cetera, et cetera. Now, is that a factor in the decision over there as well?
Yeah, sure. For a couple of companies, it is, especially for the bigger companies. So the multinationals, like the Coca-Colas, the PepsiCos, the IKEAs, that are companies that are really making a difference in the world, and they know it. And those companies are really motivated to make a better world, give us a better place. So those companies really are motivated from a sustainable side to go to electric trucks. But that are just a few companies that they are big. They are big companies, but it's just a few. For most of transportation, is just cost.
Got it. Okay, so currently, what would you consider to be the best selling, if you were walking into a client today and they were interested in switching, what truck? I realize there's all kinds of different use cases and how many miles they go in, et cetera, but kind of in general, what would you say is the truck that you are most frequently ending up helping to install in Europe today?
In Europe at the moment, it's Volvo. Okay. And that's not just because they have the best truck at the moment, because this discussion you can make. but it's probably more that they have production. They have a series production, and all the other brands, they don't have production at the moment. So not a lot of production and not series production. So that is what mostly is sold at the moment. It's Volvo, a little bit of Renault. Renault is also a Volvo company, so they have more or less technically the same truck, but most numbers are being sold by Volvo at the moment. Yeah.
So does that mean that there is way more demand for electric trucks right now than there is supply in Europe?
Yeah, I really couldn't say. Just to speak for the Netherlands, we have just a small market, and it's very driven. The sales numbers are really driven by subsidies of the government, and we had one round of subsidy last year, and it drove up sales of electric trucks by big numbers. So in 2022, there were like 100 electric trucks registered in the Netherlands on a total of 13,000. And this year, in 2023, we think that we will register over 450 electric trucks. So multiplication of 4.5, but also on 13,000 trucks in total. So numbers are quite small at the moment, and the brands, the truck manufacturers are really scaling up their production at the moment, because they all have gotten the message that electric trucks are going to be the future. Only they started a little bit on the late side in producing bigger numbers. So yeah, it's quite hard to say if demand is bigger than production is, but I don't know. At the moment, it's just okay, I think.
Okay, all right. And so as these individuals are making the decision to move into electric, are you hearing it pretty much across the board? I mean, you say they all know that electric is the future. So does that mean that the small 1 truck operator, the 10 truck operator, the 100 truck operator, are they all coming to people like you, or going to the dealerships and at least having the conversation at this point?
No, because you say they all know it's going to electric. For me, it's very clear that it's going to electric. But for most of the trucking companies and most of the individuals in the trucking space, it's very much unclear what direction it's going to be. So I could say that more than half of all the people in trucking, they still believe that diesel will be the way to go for the next coming years, for the next decade. So a big part of my work is informing and inspiring people to make a move on electric trucks. So we are really on the beginning of this transition to electric trucks, and we are just in the first percentage, the first couple of percentages of companies that making the first little steps to electric trucks. So we are really at the beginning of this transition. It could go very, very fast, but we're still very much at the beginning.
So, okay. So now you say it's all about cost and cost of ownership over time. And so these guys, more than a private auto purchaser, these trucking companies recognize that they're not necessarily, that the sticker is not everything, that it's really, what is it going to cost me over the lifetime of the truck? So if I'm looking at a Volvo right now, and I know, by the way, those of you who are listening because you love Tesla, I'm building up to this, okay? So stick with me. You're going to see my points. All right. So today, if you have somebody that's interested in a Volvo, what's kind of the framework of the cost of ownership? Where's the break even? Where do they start making money on having purchased a Volvo versus purchasing another diesel?
Yeah, for Europe, it's very tough at the moment to make a total cost of ownership break even at the moment. So subsidies are very much welcome, and they are really needed. And then again, it's still hard to make TCO break even. And this has everything to do with prices of energy. So to make a TCO break even, it's vital that the price of a liter diesel or a gallon diesel and a kilowatt hour is at a right position against each other. So for in liters, I think in 1 liter of diesel is like 10 kilowatt hours of energy. and the price of a kilowatt hour should be 1/10 of a liter diesel. So that's like 1/35 of a gallon or so, I think. So then the kilowatt hour price per liter and per kilowatt hour is the same. And then an electric truck uses about half the energy of a diesel truck. So that means in the end that you can save up to about half of energy cost. And that's very much necessary because the energy component is the biggest component. So you can earn your investment in this higher sticker price. You can earn it back by savings on energy. You could also have it on maintenance, but it's a very much smaller portion of the TCO. So these energy costs, they are going to make it, they are going to break it. And at the moment in Europe, we have an energy crisis, or we have the...
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so prices for energy, especially for electricity, went up 4 times. So they rose by 400% to 500%. And prices for a liter diesel rose only about 50%. So the TCO, where in the past it was very easy to calculate a TCO in the nearby future, now it's a little bit harder because the price of electricity is so high at the moment.
Okay, so this would be potentially then a temporary situation, especially as Europe seems to be just going crazy with offshore wind and solar development. It doesn't seem like it'll be with between the North Shore stuff off of England, stuff in Norway, stuff in basically across all of Northern Europe. We see all these offshore installations going in. It would appear you guys will be energy sufficient. Not that far in the future.
But at the moment, all this wind on sea is not installed yet. So we do have energy shortages, you could say, because in the past we made electricity with great amounts of gas from Russia. Right. And now the cheap Russian gas is gone. Price for electricity also got a lot higher.
All right. So then so basically then in terms of the long-term analysis of the electric car versus the diesel, and the electric truck versus the diesel truck, we're basically looking at when things stabilize in terms of any energy prices, it should go back to being an easier case to make.
I think so, because if I use the old numbers, so like in Europe we have like 8 cents per kilowatt hour. It was like 2 or 3 years ago that was the price for electricity. Then my TCO calculations were very much easy to make break even, especially a few years into the future. But at the moment, last year I had to calculate for some companies with like 40 or 50 cents per kilowatt hour. And then it's not so easy to make a TCO break even, even before 2030. So these electricity prices, they make they take up a big chunk of the TCO.
So then one of the ways to solve that would be to put in a charger, a mega charger. I mean, not just a charger, but a mega pack of some kind, some European version, I suppose, at this point, but maybe not. And then also to put in their own solar. So companies, in particular, point-to-point purchasers, people that have a manufacturing facility or have distribution facilities or have retail facilities, those individuals would be able to cover their roofs with solar, cover their parking lots with solar, put in some kind of a large battery along with their own charging, and they should be able to get free energy. So is that what you're pitching at this point?
Yeah, you say free energy, but it's a little bit complicated because as you may know that installing PV on your roof isn't for free. Otherwise, so this comes at a cost. And I agree. The cost price of a kilowatt hour from solar is like 8 cents, 7 or 8 cents or so, or even 5 cents in some cases. So this is very attractive for transportation companies to do this. But you also manage the battery system, and the battery system isn't for free also. So you have to buy that as well. And the cost price of a kilowatt hour through a battery system is just making it very simple, 15 cents. So then you have to add 7 or 8 cents up to 15 cents. And then you kind of come up to 22, 23 cents per kilowatt hour from your own roof. And that's, a little bit of a high price. It's not that cheap anymore.
So now is that over how many years? So what's the amortization then?
So for the solar, it's 15 years, and for the battery, you can depreciate it in 20 years, and then you come to these numbers. But the nice thing about this battery is you can use it for other things than only using it for storage of solar electricity. You could also use it for buying and selling electricity from the net when it's cheap or when it's not so cheap. And also things on balancing products, so frequency control, etc. So there are all kinds of ways to earn money with a battery, and adding that to the mix gives you eventually a lower cost price per kilowatt hour from a battery. And so, but it's really complex because you have to add all those business cases on top of each other, and then it's going to work. Only adding those business cases on top of each other, this makes it very complex and very hard to understand for the transportation company, because the transportation company really understands how to drive a truck from A to B, or to drive stuff from A to B, but they never have learned anything about electricity markets. So this is a complete new market for them, and they need some time to understand what the chances are, and they need some time to understand that there are some new business models laying ahead of them. And we're not completely at that point right now.
So if you maximize your solar and you maximize your battery and you put in your own chargers, now you would also be able to, as you mentioned, not only to arbitrage with the battery system, but you would also be able to use any excess for your own manufacturing or distribution center issues, lighting and heating, and et cetera, et cetera. So does that also impact the overall benefit of putting in a complete system?
Yeah, eventually it does, because adding all these components, every time you add a component, the business case gets better. So what it exactly does is a little bit hard for me to calculate, because I'm really focusing on the truck side of things, and all this hardware, the energy and hardware installations are just a way to make an electric truck feasible. But I think this is a really good idea to combine all those things. And as you said, maximize your solar. I did some calculations on how much solar you would need to power an electric truck for a whole year. And on average, you need about 600 square meters of solar to provide one truck year-round electricity. So that's on average. So you produce too much on a June day, and you produce far too less on a December day. But making it very easy, 600 square meters is the number you need. And for most transportation companies, they don't have such big numbers of roof to put solar on. So
if it's just a transportation company, I was thinking more of the point-to-point people, the ones that actually have a manufacturing or large retail, et cetera. Okay.
Maybe then it could work, but then again, I think 600 square meters per truck is a lot. So if you have a big factory, you probably have you have a lot of trucks as well. So
so 20 meters by 30 meters would be 600. So that's not a lot of roof. Okay, for a factory. All right. Okay. So then, all right. So great. Now let's go to the next step. Then in Europe, I heard you on the limiting factors say apparently the truck costs there are much higher. So what does it cost for a basic truck in Europe?
I can understand if you say a truck is much more expensive in Europe, but I really couldn't say, because there's nothing to compare it with in the US. Because,
that's true.
we think that a Tesla Semi will cost somewhere around $250,000, but we really don't know for sure. The only thing I know for sure is what trucks my customers buy, and my customers are buying trucks that are driving up to 300 kilometers a day with 550 kilowatt hours of battery capacity, and they're paying about 375,000 euros for such a truck. So adding like 5%, and you have dollars, but around $400,000 you have a truck with 300 kilometers of range. So that's what prices are right now. What about
the equivalent diesel? What is a
a diesel will cost around 120,000 euros. So you can say that the price for an electric truck is about 3 times as high than an electric truck. Yeah.
Okay, so then that becomes a big part of the reason why you can't make the numbers play out too. It's not just the cost of electricity right now in Europe,
exactly.
But also,
and we think that the price of electric trucks will come down in the next coming years. But we need some scale on production, and we need to start selling these trucks. So therefore, we need all the subsidies from the governments to start up this production and get the numbers going. And then we think in Europe that the prices for battery packs will come down, because the battery pack is the most expensive part of an electric truck. Price for battery packs will come down. Prices for electric trucks will come down. TCO is more easily being made break even, and then we will get in a positive feedback loop, and it goes for itself. And I think personally, with my calculations for Europe, especially for the Netherlands, so for the northwestern of Europe, I think that 2027 is the moment that the TCO break even is there for most companies. And that at that moment we will have like 20% of the new sold trucks being electric. So it will come fairly fast. So, and we think that it will be an exponential growth of electric trucks. So as I said, last year it was just under 1% of new sold trucks. And European truck manufacturers, they think that in 2025, within 2 years, that they have 10% of all the sales they do will be electric trucks. And in 2030, they think between 50 and 70% of all sold trucks will be electric. So it will come in a quite steep curve. Yeah, but the TCO break even is a necessity for that. Sure. So in Europe we are on the point of deciding to tax CO2 emissions. In practice, this will mean that the prices of a liter diesel will go up because there's some tax for CO2 in it. And we're seeing truck manufacturers are actually lobbying for a higher CO2 price, because then the TCO will get break even a lot faster, and it's more easy for truck manufacturers to make the decision to go all in on electric trucks then.
Right.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start thinking about Tesla then. If Tesla could make 50,000 or 100,000 trucks a year, which they claim they're going to make in a couple of years, they might start exporting them. Obviously, there's going to be some export duties and whatnot probably in order to get that done. But let's say they did come in to Europe with a $225,000 vehicle, which would be much easier to make the case. According to our discussion in the green room, Anyway, according to our discussion earlier, the Tesla truck, as it stands right now, is not the right product for Europe. That's your feeling about it.
No,
because it needs what?
It's too big. It's too long.
Too big.
Yeah, in Europe we have a lot stricter regulations on length and on width, but width is not the problem, but length is. In Europe we use cab over trucks, and that's because we have a lot less space in Europe, especially in the Netherlands. We're a very small country. So our roads are also being designed on those smaller, shorter trucks. So driving with a Tesla Semi, or for a American truck, for the matter, it's quite hard to make the turn. So A Tesla Semi. I don't think that we're going to see the Tesla Semi in the current state within the next coming years in Europe. So it should be the Tesla Semi should be really redesigned as a whole for Europe.
So you have a model Tesla truck behind you. So it's already seems really squashed. But it needs to be even less from front to back. It needs to be even shorter.
Yeah, exactly. I won't go into details, but for example, the distance between where the kingpin is and the front of the trailer, in Europe we have a longer how to say, the front of the trailer, but before the kingpin, between the cab and the kingpin, it's 2 meters and 4 centimeters. And I measured this model, and if we want to put it in European truck behind a Tesla Semi, it just wouldn't fit because the front of the trailer would touch the back of the cab of the truck. So this is one of the examples why it won't fit at the moment.
All right. So then at the point that Tesla decides they want to enter the European market, they would either make it in Berlin and make it to a completely new standard, or if they made it in the United States, they would just they'd need a separate line in order to justify.
Yeah, and then also for the Tesla Semi, it uses 2 driven axles, so 3 motors on 2 axles, and that's not the standard in Europe. We drive with 2 axle trucks, so 1 driven axle and 1 steering axle, and that's enough for us. So the complete driveline, the choices Tesla made for the driveline for a European truck will be completely different because the third motor has to go somewhere. So yeah, I think the driveline is also not suitable at the moment for European trucks. And yeah, we have some 3 axle trucks, but for the most of the European trucks is just not the right solution.
Yeah. Okay, good. And again, those are just engineering issues. And I know that Tesla seems to have a fairly decent engineering group. They probably
I think they manage.
They manage it one way or the other. So, and you also mentioned there was a number of issues on the limiting factor with regard to safety, and I was curious to draw that out just a little bit more. I was planning to do more research on this before I talked to you, but I just didn't get to it. So one of the things that Tesla has talked about is the anti-jackknife aspect, but you said that this is already kind of solved in Europe. And do you know why it's solved in Europe but not solved in the United States? Is there some big difference? And again, is it because of the sizes of things?
I don't think it's a technically difficult issue to solve, but I think it's in Europe we have regulations for this. Every truck has to have, even diesel trucks have to have some kind of anti-jackknifing system, so we can apply the brakes even without a truck driver knowing. Apply the brakes on the wheels so the truck will set itself straight. And also using the brakes of the trailer will set a combination straight. So I was really surprised that this was an issue because when I was selling trucks, I was a salesman in trucks. This was something we didn't even discuss with customers because it was so obvious that it was on there, and every brand has it. So yeah, wow. This is not something very special. I think Tesla mentioned it, and guys who don't know a whole lot about trucking, they think, okay, this is some big issue then. See it as a big issue, but I really don't think. But I couldn't say it for the US because I don't know what the regulations are in the US, and maybe the viewers can help us on that.
Yes, maybe so. Please give us comments below. Is this still an issue in the United States? And if it is, how come we haven't learned from our European friends?
and to be fair, even with these regulations and with the systems, trucks still jackknife in extreme situations. So it's I'm not saying that it won't happen anymore, but we have some precautions.
Okay, and so it is possible then that there might be another level of safety because they're motors, electric motors, which can respond so quickly, and they can be independent for every wheel. It may be that the computer would be able to help the truck to steady itself better with a combination of brakes and motors.
Maybe that's the thing that Tesla adds is
Right.
the acceleration could also play a role in anti-jackknifing, and for diesels it's a lot harder because the truck doesn't rev up for anti-jackknifing.
No.
It just applies the brakes in a certain way. So yeah, this could be an added system that a diesel truck cannot apply. So yeah, it could be.
Now I hear you guys have some mountains over there, so you must have some issues with. Do you have issues with runaways? I mean, do you have situations like we do where every downhill mountain has to have some kind of a runaway path for in case the brakes catch fire? And
yeah, now I have to be honest. I live in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands is really, really flat.
Oh, okay,
So,
all right.
In my neighborhood, we don't have those runaway lanes, and I learned from it just of looking in the Tesla Semi. But in Europe, I have to be honest, I never heard of it, but I won't say they aren't there. So no, but I never ever saw them. So I don't think this is really an issue in Europe.
So again, it's not an issue in the Midwest either, and probably not even in the east of the United States, because the mountains, so-called, in the eastern United States are more like hills. But boy, you get out here to the West Coast, and we've got some significant mountains going on from Colorado on, and yeah, so the trucks basically are relying 100% on brakes and gearing, and so you're gearing down, and then if for some reason you don't gear down correctly, then you can get your brakes. You're starting to use your brakes. Well, the brakes can only take
but
so much.
That's something because then I understand in the US it's more common that you drive a hand shifted gearbox, but in Europe I was a salesman for 5 years, and I think I only sold one manual shifted gearbox. And I asked the truck driver why he wanted a manual shifted gearbox, and he says, just because. And I asked him 3 times why he wanted not an automatic but a manual shifted, and he kept saying to me, just because. And that was the time I shut my mouth and I just gave him what he wanted, but he couldn't explain to me why he wanted a manual shift. So missing a shift is not really a thing in Europe, and we also it's like all the things are automated, and we have retarders, which are some hydraulic brakes where you can slow down the truck, and even you can get fines if you drive too fast down a hill.
Right. Oh, that's true here too, believe me.
So no, I never heard of really big problems. I think we got it under control here in Europe.
Okay, all right. So now you mentioned also in that video, by the way, folks, check out the other video, because I'm sure we won't cover everything that Jordan did, and I'm trying to cover things that Jordan didn't cover in general. But a couple of these I thought were really important. So you mentioned that the center of the driver being in the center of the truck, you saw dozens, I don't know how many, you saw so many advantages to that. But in particular, you talked about the safety on for left-hand driving vehicles, the safety on the right-hand side of the truck, which I had not seen mentioned by anybody else. Can you explain that?
So it really struck me when the first time I got on a big rig. I sat on the driver's seat, and I had to drive the truck out of a showroom. And the first thing I did was get out of the truck and look if there was not something in front of the truck on the right side, because you see absolutely nothing. A full-grown man could disappear in the blind spot in the front right if you're close enough to the truck. So positioning the driver in the middle helps minimizing the blind spot on the right side. And even if the way Tesla has shaped their cab, I think blind spots are on all sides are minimized. So yeah, I think that positioning the driver in the center is a really smart choice of Tesla. And as I mentioned in the video of Jordan, I also see it in Europe, the first new competitors interests in the market, like Volta trucks. They're also positioning the driver right in the center of the cabin. This was not possible with a diesel truck because he was sitting on top of the diesel motor.
Right,
and getting out on the right hand side was difficult, and sitting on top of the motor, it was just not possible because you were too high. You're sitting too high. Now that we have an electric driveline, we have a whole new field of design freedom, and one of these design freedoms is putting the driver into the center.
Yes.
And this works for aerodynamics, and aerodynamics is really big part of the energy consumption of a truck. This works for safety for the blind spots, but this also works for getting out of the truck on both sides of the cabin. So if you're on you're parked next to a sidewalk, you can step out on the right side, on the sidewalk side, and you can also get into the truck on the directly from the sidewalk. So I'm thinking that the center position is a really smart choice of Tesla, and I think that in the future we will see more and more truck manufacturers do the same thing.
Okay. All right. So the range issue. So that must be, I'm assuming, because the range is so much less than the Tesla, this must be top of mind for most of your buyers. But truly, I don't know if you know my background. I've been in manufacturing and distribution my whole life. So while I have never driven a big rig, I have had so many big rigs backed up to my buildings and have had so many conversations. So I know a little bit about what happens with trucking. But then I did some statistical analysis, and even in the United States, less than 20%, I think, go fully loaded, max out by weight. Most max out by area, by size. And number two, it's the rare truck that goes 500 miles a day. Yeah. So how does that compare when you're making your presentation? What are people looking for? What are they happy with?
So for the weight concern, I looked it up this afternoon because I'm always saying in my masterclasses that only like 10 or 20% were of all the driven kilometers or all the trips made in Europe are limited by weight. And I didn't know for sure anymore, so I looked it up this afternoon, and I'm glad I found something, a research in 2021 that also states that between 10 and 19.2% of all the trips in Europe made is weight constricted, has a weight constriction, so is on the top of the weight. So that's just a small part of all the trips that are made. And also for the trip length, so the kilometers that are driven, an average 4x2 tractor, so the normal tractor, as you would say in the Netherlands, in its first 6 years drives 600,000 kilometers, so that's like 100,000 kilometers a year. And when you divide it by 235 working days, you have just over 400 kilometers a day. So, and when I ask my customers, especially the drivers, how many kilometers they drive a day, they always go, "Oh, it's easily 600 kilometers I drive." And then the second question I always ask is, "Okay, so how many kilometers do you drive a year?" Because they all know that, and they say to me, "Yeah, it's like 110,000 or 100,000 or so." And then I say, "Okay, 600 is bullshit." So you're driving a lot less on the average day, and when you make the calculations, I think they're right. You make a lot less kilometers a day on average than most of the people are thinking.
And most trucks, I really tried to think back of people that I know in the trucking business, et cetera, et cetera. I think most trucks are only driven one shift.
Yeah. Most of the trucks are just departing from depot in the morning and returning on depot in the evening. So all these trucks, they don't drive a whole lot more than like 100,000 kilometers a year, at least in Europe. So
which is about 65, 63, something like that, 1,000 miles.
Yeah, exactly. And that and for like rigid truck, like a 4x2 and 6x2 rigid truck, they drive even less, like a max of 70,000 on average a year. So kilometers. So that's even less. That's like 40 or 50,000 miles, I think.
So the interesting news is that people are driving a lot less than they thought. And they're not going full, because I started thinking about, the trucks that came to my place. I was selling bicycle water bottles, so I wasn't providing any weight at all. But even so, most loads that I'm aware of are going out mixed load. They're picking up some of this and some of that, and some of this, some of that, and then taking it across. And then most companies that are shipping, there's only certain products that weigh out. It's
very specific full trailer loads that are max on weighing out. That just most of the trips made are not limited on weight.
And then if you're smart,
electric trucks in Europe, and I know for the US as well, we have some additional weight for if you are an electric truck, and
yes.
on the birth certificate of the truck states that it's weighing more because it's an electric truck. Then you can weigh even more than a diesel. So that's part of the solution, I think. Yeah.
Right, and I know also that a lot of times when you have a situation, I've sold padlocks and I've sold bicycle water bottles, and padlocks, of course, weigh out. So what you do is you fill the truck halfway up with padlocks, and then you put your bicycle water bottles on top. So now you have you maximize the space in the truck and also the weight at the same time. There's lots of ways.
Did I mention that we are very keen on costs in transportation? So
yes,
we're trying to So we're trying to maximize everything in transportation. And if weight is the problem, then we fill it up with some other stuff that's not that heavy.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So I think most people aren't aware that these are methods that are used in order to solve some of these problems, but it does actually make it harder to prove out your lifetime cost, because it's going to take longer to get the benefit of the electric cost per hour.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Let's see. I'm looking kind of at my list here. We talked about the infrastructure. We talked about lifetime savings. Okay. We actually, without me even looking at this list, we've kind of taken a look at so many of the things. Oh yes. What do you think in Europe about convoys and autonomous driving? Are these, do you think these things will happen?
Those are two separate subjects, I think, because we already did some testing in convoys, like driving really close to each other, connecting the first truck to the second and third and even the fourth or fifth truck in a row. And it seems at the moment, if I have to believe with the research has been done the correct way, that that you have to drive really close to each other, a really small distance from front to back, to have really an advantage to drive in a convoy. Because what you want to do in a convoy is to lower your aerodynamic drag, and therefore driving shorter behind each other is better. And at the moment, just the systems are not good enough to let the trucks drive so close to each other that there's a lot of advantage you make. So at the moment, we don't see any possibilities in convoy driving, and by convoy driving lowering the energy consumption. So this is it looked like it had a lot of potential, but at the moment the technology is just not far enough to do such a thing.
Right.
Yeah, and then for autonomous driving, I think autonomous driving, we will see autonomous driving first in maybe China and perhaps in the US, but certainly not in Europe, because we have all these different countries with they all have different rules, different markings on the road, different road signing, etc. But also in Europe, if something is not put into a law, it's prohibited, so it's forbidden. And if I understand correctly, in the US, it's completely the opposite.
The opposite,
If something isn't not put into a law, it's possible. And therefore, I think that autonomous driving will be very tough to implement in Europe. And in China, I could see this. And in the US as well, I could see this going a lot faster than in Europe. But I'm optimistic about the chances that technology will fulfill these needs of autonomous driving. And the space where autonomous driving will have its most value is in trucking. I think more than in personal cars. So when Tesla solves the autonomous challenge of the autonomous problem, just so how you want to call it, I think then trucks are going to be the big moneymaker with autonomy. So yeah.
What about other competitors? Are there a lot of European makers coming on stream in terms of startups, or do you think most of the startup trucks are going to come out of China and and of course Tesla? But do you see where do you think the competition is going to be created? Well,
for completely new truck brands, you mean?
Yes.
Or do you mean for autonomous trucking?
Well, in other words, I think you've already stated, and maybe I got it wrong, but that pretty much every existing truck maker, Mercedes and all the rest, are going to be making electric trucks. They know that the handwriting's on the wall, but what about startups? Are you seeing startups in Europe as well?
Yeah, we're seeing startups, especially in the hydrogen space, so in the fuel cell electric trucks, but sooner or later they are all going to go out of business. We saw it already with Hyzon Motors Europe. They're in big troubles at the moment. Nikola, I wrote last week, was also in financial troubles, and they don't know if they're going to make the next year, which isn't a surprise to me. Because the economics of a fuel cell electric truck don't add up, not even by far. So I think all the startups in the fuel cell electric space have a very small chance of succeeding. And then you have the electric trucks, like Volta. I already mentioned one of those brands, and Volta is one of the brands, I think, that one of the startups that I think have a good chance of surviving, making a buck. So surviving for the next coming years. But after that, I really don't see any new big brands in Europe. If I think there will be new entrances to the market, it will be the Chinese players. And the reason why I think that the Chinese brands have more chance of surviving is that when the TCO of an electric truck does go break even, and the legacy automakers, they don't have the supply chain on the just, how do you say it? They don't have the supply chain to produce enough batteries, because that's where I think that's a limiting factor will be. If the TCO is right, transportation companies want their electric truck, and they will buy an electric truck. And if Mercedes or Volvo can't deliver an electric truck, they will go and search for another brand with electric trucks. And then I can see that, for example, BYD is a brand that does have the supply chain for battery cells and battery packs, etc., but isn't the big known brand for trucks, but will sell trucks because they have electric trucks available and they have the supply chain on the spot. So I think there will be new brands in trucks, especially in electric trucks. And I think the constraint on battery supply will be the factor that new brands will come into the market.
Yeah, interesting. Well, okay, I think I've asked all my questions. Is there anything that I didn't cover that you think my audience would find valuable in terms of the future of electric trucking?
That's quite a tough question, actually. I really don't know, because I'm very curious if one of the viewers knows what a Tesla Semi would cost.
Nobody knows. I mean,
no, nobody knows. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really want to know, because I want to do some calculation on the specs. And
so we're speculating is what we're doing. And and my speculation has been from the very beginning that if you're all by yourself in the market and you know you have tremendous advantages, and you know that the cost, lifetime cost, is you have a tremendous advantage. Let's say at 200,000, then why wouldn't you charge 300,000? So while I think that there's a real possibility that Tesla could come out, when they finally announced the pricing, they could come out as low as 225 or 250 or 275. I think all those things are possible. I would be shocked if it's under 300,000, and I've been shocked before.
Yeah, it would, especially for the 500-mile version. If the price would be anything below $300,000, it would be revolutionary.
Yeah.
And it's break even just at the moment. It's just already break even then. So
yes.
This would not be a problem.
Yeah, in the U.S., you're talking about $60 a mile. I'm sorry, 60 cents a mile savings. So
that's huge.
Pays for itself.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah,
and that's without putting in your solar and your big battery and stuff. So it's just crazy how fast it pays off.
Yeah, what I this afternoon, I was looking at some of the cost components of electric trucks, and especially compared to the Tesla. I noticed that, and that I didn't notice this before, but from an energy consumption point of view, the Tesla is a really efficient truck, I think, because we have very limited data to compare it to other trucks. And at first I didn't think it was very special, like it's like 1.7 kilowatt hours per mile or something. And I thought, okay, this also has been done by Volvo in Europe, like 1.1 kilowatt hour per kilometer. That's quite more or less the same. But then I was making some calculations with gallons and miles, and then I thought, and I make some comparison between diesel consumption and electric consumption. I was noticing that my calculations were giving a much higher energy consumption than the Tesla was doing. So I think I have the model right here. You could see if you do like 6 miles a gallon or so. Then my model tells me this would be like 340 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. So like 3.4 kilowatt hours per mile. Like that's like double of what Tesla does. So I think this area, the guys at Tesla, and I don't think this comes as a surprise, but they have really understood what aerodynamics do for a truck.
Oh, it's not just the aerodynamics. Actually, we were all wondering. I mean, I think you understand possibly that there's about, I don't know, a dozen of us YouTubers and other guys that are, the ones that are writing the books and really doing the research. Mm-hmm. And all of us were sitting on pins and needles when the Tesla Semi was introduced, because we were trying to figure out how could they get to that number. And sure, aerodynamics matters, but it was the drivetrain is where it really happened. And Jordan really did a great job of showing how efficient this drivetrain is. But as part of it is that they're basically using the same idea in the motor that they are in the Plaid. So the motor itself is hugely more efficient than any other motor out there. But then they did this trick. And the trick is that they got the 3 motors. And one of them is designed for open road cruising and barely uses any energy at all.
Yeah.
And you only use the other two motors when you need to go uphill, or when you're starting up from a stop, or when you're using regen, when you're slowing down or going downhill. So this combination, and using software in order to manage it, that was the big breakthrough. That's the thing that is giving them 500 plus miles of range. Is that fact? I mean, yes, the other thing all matters. You get 5% here and 10% there, and all these little things matter. But the big deal was the way the three motors work together.
Yeah, I really see whenever I make some calculations that when comparing to Tesla, you always can add, or you can save another 10% or 15% when it's Tesla compared to a legacy automaker. So those guys are really doing a hell of a job over there in the US.
Well, Johnny, look, it's been great having you on the show. You sound like a really somebody who really does your homework, really does your research, really is careful to take into consideration the customer's needs. Let me say again to my audience, if you know somebody in the United States which would like to have Johnny come over to the US and give some talks, or start to get involved in some consulting with US users, or with in particular, with owners of trucking companies or companies that use trucks, please look at the information below to be able to get in contact with Johnny. And hey, listen, this has been great, Johnny. I'm so glad you came on, and maybe we'll do this again in a few months when the price of electricity drops in Europe.
Yeah, I hope so, but I think it will take a couple of years before price will come down again. But it was great to be on your show, Randy. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.